Hello and welcome to a very special episode of What Do You Call It podcast. I'm your host, GB. I know I said I'd have no new episodes out for the rest of the month, but I lied. And honestly, I'm glad I lied because of today's guest. Today's guest is a wrestling legend. He spent time in TNA, ECW, WCW, WWE. Please welcome the Swingman, Johnny Swinger. Johnny, how you doing today, mate? You all good?
Thanks, Big Daddy. Thanks for having me on. That's quite the intro. We're going to figure out what do you call it by the end of this. I promise you that.
Obviously, mate, the intro is well deserved because, what, 25-year vet now in the career. Probably longer than that.
Actually, north of 30 now, believe it or not. It's going by, man. Yeah, I'm at probably about 31, 32 years now from my pro debut. So, yeah, it's been quite a ride.
Honestly, mate, and we're going to discuss some of the highlights and your journey in your wrestling career. But before I do that, just because it's recently happened, unfortunately, the wrestling world did lose the extreme icon Sabu, and you shared the locker room with him in various companies and shows. I just want to know if there's any memories or any stories that you can share on the podcast before we kickstart our chat.
Yeah, for sure. Got along great with Sabu, even though our styles were completely different, but we had the same kind of mentality on how wrestling was presented at that time. And then even through recent years, he was what we call someone that had really good psychology, even though his own
Mm.
personal style was uh, pretty extreme. But that's what worked for him. That's what made him a star. And he put everything into it. And, he lived the way he wanted to live, as far as a lot of people saying he passed away early or young, which he did number wise. But like I said, he did it the way he wanted to do it.
Yeah,
So that to me, that's a good life
that's it. He was a true innovator, and the
for
fact, a
sure.
lot of fans and his colleagues, as
He
we
was
you've
special,
just remembered,
definitely.
he definitely was, mate. Um, I want to before I sort of rewind the clocks a little bit. It's just because you've been recently involved in Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, a promotion owned by Scott Demore, who I've had on the show. I actually interviewed him in person. A great guy, but I know you've sort of got an attachment to him as a promoter and a friend. But tell me about wrestling for his new promotion.
Oh, it's great. It reminds me of actually like TNA is he was the mastermind behind that for the last several years. So
Yeah.
just the production of it all, the people he has in the back putting that all together. It's a major TV production, and my hat's off to him, man. He's got a brain for that. Not everybody does. It takes a lot of skills that people don't know about. I don't have them. I'm good to do my match and do my part, and but there's so much involved with running an organization of that size, and that Maple Leaf Gardens, a major
Yeah.
venue like that, and he just pulled that off. Just unbelievable. He's very talented when it comes to that part of the business, and he's been good for the business. And I think going forward, this Maple Leaf Pro is hopefully they get a TV deal, and I'm asked to be a part of it because I've had a lot of fun thus far with the first three tapings.
No, that's good to hear, mate. I'm sure he will get a TV deal. He's a wrestling genius, and
Right. Yeah. I mean, no, he
you know,
really is. He's from the old school and bridged over to the new school, like a lot of us are. And he knows how to mix it up. He's not just selling one product. It's got a lot of different layers to that. And I think it looks different than the other TV shows that are on now. So, and especially being pushed in Canada, which no product is really being pushed in Canada full bore. That's a whole country full of people
yeah.
to get behind a product. So I think it's really smart that he branded it that way.
No, I agree, mate. I agree. Um, what I do want to touch on is WCW. Going back to the intro of the promotion that you've been a part of, you had some appearances in WCW TV, Nitro, Saturday Night, Thunder. Um, I know all kinds of stories that have been told since the Monday Night Wars have ended, but Johnny, someone you were in the thick of it all. Please tell me, in general, sort of how was the overall experience in WCW World Class Championship?
Looking back on it, it was the best job I ever had. I didn't realize it at the time, as
Oh, fair enough.
is the case with a lot of. That was my big break in wrestling, as far as going on national TV, where there were millions of people watching on a weekly basis.
Hmm.
And I was just with Eric Bischoff at a signing a few weeks ago, and every time I see him, I always thank him for giving me that break because he didn't have to. I was, as you said, I was making appearances in the mid '90s at 20 years old, 21 years old. He could have just kept me doing that for $200 a night, but in 1997, he gave me a guaranteed contract. I knew how much money I was going to be making every week for 2 to 3 years, and it was way more than what I needed to live on at the time. So I consider that a huge break in my life and my career, and just the opportunity to wrestle all those big names that I had just grew up watching on TV and in major arenas and domes, and it was just it was the best. It really was the best time period for wrestling when I was involved with it.
Speaking of domes, you were actually on the card wrestling Chavo Guerrero on WCW Nitro, and the highest rated Nitro of all time, featuring Goldberg against Hulk Hogan. So you've got to describe, mate, the atmosphere in the building and backstage.
It was unbelievable. To me, that was a WrestleMania kind of deal. Since I never got a chance to go there, like you said, a lot of records broken on one night, and it was put together in less than a week. And I didn't have anything to do with drawing that crowd, but they knew that it was going to be a big crowd, and they thought that I was good enough to be on there. So that's
Yeah.
good enough for me. I'll take that. And I'll always remember that because of all the records you just said. And even to this day, when you walk to the ring through a crowd that big, I just remember it taking forever. And by the time I got close to the ring, what I was thinking to myself was, wow, if this isn't the big time, I don't know what is. I mean, that was incredible. Like I said, to be thought of, to be put on that card, that was a huge deal for me. And wrestling Chavo, who had wrestled many times, who always had good matches together on TV, so we were comfortable with each other,
Yeah.
so it wasn't stressful or anything like that. And we always had, it was a good match, just like we always had. And I still see him occasionally. We always talk about that one because there aren't too many bigger events than that when it comes to WCW.
Mate, it was historic, honestly. Just fans are still talking about it to this day. You
Right.
mentioned about the legends, you talked about Eric Bischoff and Chavo Guerrero, and people that you had been in the ring with. But just tell me some of the people that you found yourself interacting with at a young age, backstage in WCW, picking their brains, traveling with, or even sort of training with.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. Like I said, literally just the people that I was watching on TV when I was in high school. Now, like you said, I'm in the dressing room with them, and Hulk Hogan and Macho Man and Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, who I knew as Razor and Diesel from WWF, just all these main event uh, top stars, Mr. Perfect, Rick Rude, just all my idols, all my heroes. And now, like you said, I'm in the dressing room with them, I'm in the hallway with them, and I'm in the ring with a lot of them. So, yeah, it was one of those things where you're like, wow, is this really happening? And it was. And I was just, like I said, grateful for that chance to be a part of that, even a small part of it, of a really historical run in wrestling from 1997 to 2000. Everything was incredibly huge, and there was two big teams, and I was lucky enough to be on one of them. So yeah, and the guys, easy to talk to. Whenever I saw Hulk, I'd go up and say hello to him. Macho Man, like I said, Mr. Perfect, all those guys that I just idolized. There wasn't one guy that I could think of that was standoffish or just wasn't willing to help. And then you had guys like DDP that were there, and Goldberg was the biggest thing going. He was a cool guy. I knew him just a year or two prior to that when he was just starting. He never changed, even though he
Yeah.
just drew the biggest crowd ever. He was still the same guy. And when I see those guys today at FanFest, same thing. We just pick up right where we left off. Like even if it's been 10 years, it's like it's only been 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Just can have conversations with people. Jimmy Hart, I saw him a few months ago. I haven't seen him for years. Oh
He looks
man,
the same, doesn't he? He looks the same.
oh, unbelievable. Yeah, he's like 80 years old, 81 years old. Oh, man, what's your secret? Because he got knocked around a lot, even though people, oh, he was a manager, but he was a
Yeah.
manager that got
He
thrown
took
around
some
and took a
bumps,
lot of
yeah.
bumps and was very active in the ring. So, yeah, it's crazy that he still looks, you know, the same as he did when I was a kid. So, yeah, it's cool to see those guys. that's the fun part for me now is going to these fan fests and the independent shows and getting to
Mm.
see a couple of those guys. Fan fest, you get to see a whole bunch of them. So it's like a paid. You get paid to go to a reunion. Most people are lucky to go to a reunion, but they actually pay us to go to these things. And
That's a good way of putting it.
you try to talk to as many as you can. Because it's a lot of fun and talk about the old days. You know what I mean? What, like you said, what it was like when we had these gigantic crowds, and not that WWE doesn't, but in AEW they do pretty well. But when you're
Mm.
talking 40,000 people and 18,000 people in Chicago, the United Center, I mean that was excitement, man. It really was.
For a company to not be called WWE. But we will touch about your WWE run first. But I want to about the chapter after WCW. Extreme Championship Wrestling. By the way, I said World Class Championship Wrestling earlier. It's because I was watching it the other day, so it's just on my mind. But in
I
case of no
wish.
comments.
I wish I could have been there. I would love to have Eric's. That would have been
Uh,
fun.
but just in case someone in the comments says. But anyway, it was actually my first exposure to you, by the way, as a fan. You and Simon Diamond. So as
Yeah.
a tag team, I remember watching like old ECW VHSs, show my age now, videos and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is cool. They're quite a cool pairing. But Johnny, you got to tell me about your first impressions of ECW. You've just come through WCW, and then now you've entered ECW locker room and the ring and the fans. 180.
Really an unlikely destination for me. When we were in WCW, I remember me, Disco, and Canyon, a lot of guys, we would watch the ECW program because it was on at midnights, I think, on down here in Atlanta. And it was so different from what we were doing, just all the crazy stuff they were doing. We all used to go, man, that stuff's awesome, but we'll never do that. And then lo and behold, I end up going there. Um, I can't even tell you how that came about. It just my time was up with WCW, and I was looking to go to WWF at the time, but they just didn't take an interest. And then my friendship with Raven and a couple other people at least got me a tryout with
Mm.
ECW, and I thought, well, maybe this is a good place to go to increase my name value to where McMahon and them would want me, or even go back to WCW with a higher position. So that's how I ended up there. And the cool thing about it is I didn't really have to change who I was. I still wrestled the same. Well, like you said, Sabu was doing his thing, and Sandman and Rhino, and who's a great friend of mine to this day, and just incredible. Everybody had their own position on the card, and me and Simon Diamond had a really good spot with the tag team,
Yeah.
and we wrestled all the big tag teams at the time, and we were pushed towards the belts all the way up till the end. We were figured in all the TVs and pay-per-views, so it was a really good experience for me, a good place to be, and I think I didn't go get what out of it what I thought I would, which is increased exposure, uh, proof that if an organization got behind me, I could become a draw. The only problem with it is that Vince McMahon bought that and WCW at the same time, so it really limited jobs at that point. I think if it would have kept going, I could have used a little more time there.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah, no, I get you, mate. But it's still fact that you still was exposed there. You know, the fans got to see you in a different light. I know you said you didn't really change anything, but it's a different fan base. And the fact
right?
that you
Oh,
were
for
able to
sure.
maintain a spot on a regular basis on the TVs and the pay-per-views in that year with still a strong roster. I know, the balances and ECW did eventually go under, but still for it to be taken over by WWE, to be on the network, and for fans to still talk about it to this day,
Right.
made an
That
impact
whole
on your
last
career.
that whole last year we were on there, they did the biggest houses. Those were the biggest crowds. You had 6,000 people in Chicago and 6,000 in LA, Toronto.
Mm,
So that business was already built. That's what was so sad about it, is we really were doing good business there. We just don't know what was going on behind the scenes
yeah.
financially. And sometimes, even though you finally got the business going really good, there are past debts that we didn't know about. To this day, we don't know the whole story on that. We just know that we were drawing big crowds all the way up to the last show in New York City in January of 2001 was the last pay-per-view, and it was sold out. So it wasn't like, oh man, these guys are going down, and they don't have Taz anymore, they don't have the Dudleys. That wasn't the case. It was doing strong business. It just, we didn't know the expenses and debts that were incurred was probably bigger than all that was coming in, if you got to guess. But yeah, it was sad because we all needed that place to work, and there's a whole roster of people there now looking for a job, and there was only one organization to get a job, so that was a tough period.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine. But you would eventually end up in WWE, but not as Johnny Swinger. You'd actually be renamed Johnny Parisi. And
Right.
you got to tell me about the origins of the name first, and then I want to talk about the time that you had in WWE.
Well, yeah, it's a strange story. They signed me in February 2005, but I didn't make an appearance until, gosh, almost July, because they were starting a developmental system in Georgia where I was living in Atlanta, and I was involved with that. And then finally, when I got the call to go to TV, I thought, okay, this is great. I'm going to get a chance here. And when I was at the first Monday Night Raw, they had me in a match with a guy, what we call an enhancement match, a good match for me to look good and debut with. And gosh, an hour before we're going out there, Johnny Laurinaitis is telling me, well, Vince said you can't use the name Swinger. I'm like, okay, what does he want me to be? He's like, oh, I don't know, come up with it. I'm like, gosh, we're going on the air here in an hour. So I didn't know what to, and I'm going to some of my friends like Chris Jericho and some big, man, you guys got any ideas? Because it really caught me off guard. I just figured, not that I was a big star, but I was already known on TV as Johnny Swinger. And
Yeah,
usually when they want to change it, they got something in mind. And
you
like I
know in
said,
advance like
pretty
what the name is going to be
stressful.
or the options you'll get. But an hour before you actually debut on television, it's like figure it out.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to think about having a good match and how to look good here and stand out. And they're
Yeah,
telling me come up with a name, and I'm thinking, man, they got this whole creative team there. So basically, what happened was eventually one of these writers came to me and said that when they were in the meeting earlier in the day, they waited to tell me they knew. That's kind of part of the rib. They didn't tell me until 7 o'clock, but they in the meeting, I guess Triple H was in the meeting and said that he had heard that I was related to Tony Parisi, who was a big star in the '60s and '70s with Bruno and all those guys. Why don't we just have him be Johnny Parisi? And finally, when they said, I was like, fine, that sounds good, whatever. Because the name is not as important as what they do with it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's your name could be anything, and so I did what I was told, which is what I was always taught to do. Is like, hey, how many people get a chance to sign with the WWE? You can't go in on your first night and tell them, hey, I don't like that, or we got to change this.
yeah.
Like, you
Start
take what
demanding.
they give you and try to make the best out of it. So I had gotten a tip with the name that hey, they want to see an aggressive kind of style. So I put it on this guy pretty good, and he was a nice kid, and he took it well, and made me look real good. And that's really what it was. And I wasn't worried about the name too much, other than what are they going to do with it? Am I going to be on Survivor Series? Am I going to be on, because that's where you go there to make money and get a big push and be a star. That's what you go there for.
Wicked. Well, I know you wasn't there for long, unfortunately, but you still got to be on TV, and you still got to have a run. What was some
Right.
of
Yeah,
the
it was a
highlights that you
year. It
did
was a
have?
year and a half, about a year and a half there under contract.
Yeah,
And you see online a lot of these quotes where, oh, creative has nothing for you. Well, that's what they kept saying. I'm like, well, guys, if the way I was brought into the business is if they don't have anything for you and they keep telling you that, it's like, well, there's no point sticking around. I wasn't on a big guaranteed contract. If I was, I'd have just kept
mm,
quiet and collected it. But I had gotten to a point where I was still, at that point, you were still kind of paid according to how you were on the card. I don't know what it is now. I heard the guys got a lot bigger guarantees now, but my guarantee was very small. Even though I hear it was bigger than the guys from the '80s. So I guess it all goes up. So I had a bigger contract than guys in the '80s, meaning if they weren't booked, they didn't get paid anything, or a very small amount of money, not enough to live on. And it's hard to be a WWF star or WWE star, and you got to go get a part-time job here or something. So it got to that point for me, and I was like, well, I had enough of exposure from the other places that I felt I could at least go to the independents
mhm.
and just make a better living. And that's what I ended up doing. I really did go back to the independents in 2007, and I'm pretty sure every year I beat my WWF pay, WWE pay in 2005. So
Bloody hell.
until I got the return to TNA in 2019. So it was
I definitely want to touch on the return to TNA, and
sure.
I will because I think it's been fun. So you reintroduce yourself to a younger audience who may have not been aware of Johnny Swinger, and they've been only watching wrestling for a few years now, and they've
Right.
seen you, sort of a throwback to to the old school wrestling. But you are a veteran already, and it's such a fun character. It's tough with Sticky Dice, you being a swing man. How first of all, how did you get back into TNA? What sort of influenced you to come back?
Well, Scott Demore called me, and like you said, we had been friends from. He's the one that got me started with WCW, so that's how far back we go.
Oh,
We've always
really?
stayed
Oh, wow.
friends, and yeah, he was always a big backer of mine, and
Yeah.
he was finally in full control of that. And he was in a meeting, and someone brought up my name, and they're like, Swinger is like this real. He really is like this old school guy with all this experience, and uh, I think some people knew that I had some comedic chop going on, and just from my some experience with so many of these characters, and I retained so much from them, I could make a gimmick out of it, so to speak. And
Yeah.
it was finally a chance for me. Like when you talk in WCW, I remember looking at that, going, "Gosh, how am I going to outdo Benoit and Malenko and Eddie Guerrero and all these trying to wrestle like those guys?" That was really hard to do. So if you fast forward all these years, I kind of did the same thing where I looked at this thing and I saw what all the guys are doing, and these almost all the guys and girls are doing these unbelievable moves and death defying. I was like, I can't do that. What can I do to stand out and be of entertainment
Yeah.
value to the show? And that's where the entertainment aspect came in. I'm like, whatever people think, that's what I thought was it. Whatever people think about wrestling, whether it's real or it's not or it's scripted, if you can make people laugh and entertain them, they get their money's worth for that night, and they'll probably come back again. So that was I threw myself into the comedy aspect and not making a cool joke, more of making fun of myself. That was kind of what I thought, because Nash and those guys and Hall, they could make a funny thing on the microphone, but nobody had really come along yet besides Santino Marella. So I kind of took a page out of his book. Like, if
Yeah.
I just go out there and take all this knowledge that I have and all this interaction with all these characters over here and just make a complete fool of myself, I think it'll stand out from what everybody else is doing. And man, it caught on
Yeah.
right away. And
It
I
entertains
was,
so many
yeah.
people, not just the Impact Zone, but TNA fans and wrestling fans in general.
Yeah, they just
Got
want a
got
character to, like I said, if you can make people laugh, you're entertaining them. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And so it was a great spot for me. And man, it was 4 years. I got three contracts out of that. So it was way more than I was expecting. When he first called me, I was hoping to get a year out of it. I got four, and then people will come up to me to this day at the man, why aren't you on there anymore? I said, and I say this, I said, when you're in professional wrestling, which is what I am, all jobs are temporary. Nothing's for life, nothing's forever. Administration changes just like any other corporation, you know what I mean? And I got to do so much on there, and it was more than enough what I needed to carry me through for the rest of the time that I want to be involved with it, which I do for the long term. So it was a great new feather in my cap later on in life. You know what I mean? So I'm not just living on the ECW and the WCW. Oh gosh, that was 25 years ago. Whereas
Mm.
this was new exposure for me, and they gave me a great chance. Scott had some good people working behind the scenes at the time, creative writers, and man, they gave me stuff, and we just ran with it. And most of the stuff really got over with the people, and it was exciting. It was a lot of fun.
Hello there. I've got a special announcement for my next guest.
This is Chevs, and I will be appearing on the What Do You Call It podcast.
You heard. Is there anything you want to say to your fans? Any promotions or any shows that you want to promote at the end of the podcast? Because Swingman, we're now at the end of this interview.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and definitely watch for Maple Leaf Pro. I'm involved with that ongoing. That's a great current major organization going on. Also, my good friend Rhino has the Insane Wrestling Revolution up in Michigan. I've been doing some big shows for him. He had Kurt Angle and Rob Van Dam there just a few weeks ago. He's really, his business is really going up. And I got FanFest coming on at the Jacksonville River City WrestleCon coming up in June. So I'm staying busy. Most weekends are booked up for me, and I'm hoping to keep it that way. And like you said, if there's something you see me do in wrestling and you liked it, man, come on up and let me know, or shoot me a line on Instagram, all that stuff. I watch all that stuff. So it's I'm still having fun, just like when I started. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
That's it, man. I can tell as a fan that you're in a great place. You enjoy the fan interactions. You've had a great career. There's been variations of you, John Parisi, the tag team with Simon Diamond, WCW. Like I said, the throwback to the old school character in TNA.
Right.
And I think there's gonna be more. There's still a lot more. So
To
yeah,
all the young wrestlers out there, never say never, man. Just keep pushing, and your chance, your opportunity will come. You got to be ready. I just stay ready, man. Like what's that other good friend of mine, Cardona, says? Always be ready, man. He's right. Be ready. And sometimes you got to do small shows, man. That's just keeping you warm till a big one comes up. That's all it is. You're waiting for your next role. You're like an actor.
awesome. Where can the listeners find you on social media, Johnny?
I'm on all of them. Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Johnny_Swinger. What is it? X now at Swinger_Johnny. Of course, Facebook. I try to get on there as much as I can. I definitely post all my appearances online. So if you're in any of these areas, I do a lot in the Southeast. But like I said, I get all over the country now. I get up to Canada and Michigan and New York State and all that. I was up in outside Boston 6 months ago, so I still get around. You know what I mean? And I get more and more of these fan fests every year. I really enjoy doing those. But I'm staying in the ring. I have no plans of getting out of the ring. I got bumps and bruises, but nothing that needs to be replaced. And just for being dropped by the Big Show and Kane and Kevin Nash and all these guys, I think I'm doing pretty good physically. So I'm just going to keep rolling with it until my body says no. And I don't think that's anytime soon.
And the fans are grateful to see you keep them rolling, mate. Thank you for your time, Swing Man. Much appreciated.
Anytime, brother. You
Let's go
got it,
speak soon.
Daddy. Keep punching. Thank you.
If you can all like this video, subscribe to the channel. But for now, everyone, take care and have a great weekend.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's time for What Do You Call It? Podcast.